watching or listening to the Smoke-Filled Room. We are happy to have you back. This is the first week petitions can be passed in Illinois, so there is so much news. We've actually cut most of it, and yet our agenda is already the longest it's ever been here in what I think our 17th episode of the Smoke-Filled Room. So we're glad you're here. We're going to dive into a few topics and go in depth into some of them before we start hitting some of the quicker things. But first, I got to introduce my political team. So let's go alphabetical again. Abby, Chris, John, Matt, Michael, thank you guys for being with us this week. As I said, we've got a lot to get into. But first, I got to say, last week's episode, if you missed it, I know with the holiday, some people didn't get a chance to watch or listen. You should go back because for those who did, we've gotten the most compliments from last week's episode of any of the episodes we've done, except for maybe some of the ones that we've done live. And most people talked about the intensity of the discussions and some of our disagreements. You know, me being right, Chris being very, very wrong.
Or the inverse.
People seem to really enjoy that, Chris. How does it feel to be the whoopee cushion and having to be wrong live on a show like this?
Well, I wouldn't know, Colin. I think you'd have to ask yourself in the mirror that question. I wouldn't know what it's like to be wrong. Well, my mother always said I was a contrarian, so I'm glad to be taking up the mantle here on the Smoke-Filled Room.
I mean, I guess I'm just curious what you and Michael think about that link I posted to our Discord that showed that Kias and Hyundais nationally are not the most stolen vehicles. And in fact, my favorite cars, the Dodge Chargers and Challengers, are the top four, three of the top four. You got to go down to six to find the first Kia. And there's only a total of 4 Kias on this whole list, no Hyundais. I'm just curious how you feel about the data not backing up your claims that, this is a Kia and Hyundai problem and not a Chicago problem.
Well, Colin, maybe I'll go ask the city department on statistics the most commonly stolen car in Chicago, and we can have that discussion as well, because the conversation was specifically related to the city of Chicago.
That's true, which means it only proves my point that Chicago is the problem. See? Thank you for proving my point.
Well, we had the same problem in St. Louis last summer. It was pretty bad.
It could also be other major big cities because Dodge Chargers may be more likely to be stolen outside of major cities and major metropolitan areas.
See, that's just not how stats work. Ask Abe to teach you statistics at some point.
Also,
hold on. I'm just having some fun at Chris's expense. I'm not looking to dig this up again. So let's go right into it. Colin.
We can.
It's just.
I beg you, please do not. Please don't.
It's fun to tease Chris. All right, let's get into some topics here. This just broke. We're recording this on Thursday, and this news just hit on Thursday, which was Patrick Finkston broke that there was a filing from the House Republican Organization, which is the campaign arm of House Republicans, that show that Tim Ozinga is out as HRO chairman. Ryan Spain, who previously was the chairman, is now back in. This is very fresh news. A lot of people think there's probably more to this story, but I don't know that any of us have actually been able to get to it since it's been less than 24 hours. Anybody have any thoughts on this or any more information than just what we've heard?
Look, Tim Ozinga is a man of many hats. You know, the family owns Ozinga Concrete and all that stuff. He's the chairman of the Will County Republican Central Committee. He's a state representative. He's got the Big Tent Coalition. He's a busy man. I wouldn't be surprised if HRO just was one hat too many for Tim, and it's just something he couldn't handle the time and the effort it took into him. I wouldn't blame him. Certainly, he's a man of many hats, and handling that many hats would probably be very frustrating for him.
Possible. I mean, I also, what I know of Tim, I don't think he's the kind of guy to step down or stay away from a challenge. So even if he was really busy, I don't know that would stop him, but you could be right.
Look, we've all heard the criticism of HRO this cycle, whether it's warranted or not, whether it's Trump, whether it's a million other things. We've all heard the criticism of HRO, and as the chair, it ultimately falls on you as being responsible for that. So maybe they're making him wear the jacket for some of their lack of recruitment. Again, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, but it's possible.
I mean, you may be right, but here's what I know. Every time I hear HRO's involved with something, it's McCombie. It's not Ozinga. Ozinga's never in the conversation. When they're out recruiting, when they've got people at events, it's been McCombie all year. So, I think this is definitely McCombie's show, which we said when she took over, she's a very, very hands-on type of leader. So I don't know that Ozinga was overly involved with a lot of the candidate recruitment or HR activities as it is, maybe that's the point here. Maybe that's the issue here, because McCombie has definitely been the face of this. I don't know if that changes under Ryan Span. It definitely seems like McCombie's style is definitely to be a lot more hands-on, maybe even than previous leaders were compared to their HRO chairman.
After the election, I mean, parts were moving around. People were seeing who's going to be in what positions. And now that the campaigns are starting to ramp up, it seems like they're kind of getting their groove together of what they want. And McCombie is really starting to feel around of what kind of people she wants to put in place. It seems that there could be some kind of power dynamic between her and Ozinga. And now that she's got her feet wet and started putting things in place, she knows what she wants and she doesn't need Ozinga anymore, in her opinion.
Listen, I think I could certainly see that. We're just speculating. Let's make sure that that's clear. But with McCombie being hands-on, we've all heard this since well before she became leader. She wants things done her way, for better, for worse, and she deserves a chance to prove whether or not her way is going to work or not. We're going to find out. But Ozinga is not a wallflower. He's not a type B personality. So I could imagine, there are situations where they want things very different. And let's be honest, we've often looked at Ozinga's organization as Big Tent. It's very, very, very focused on grassroots, which grassroots is a really important part of the equation, but they believe grassroots is the only thing. And we've had challenges and frustrations with Ozinga and Big Tent over that last cycle, where there was just no willingness to push anything other than grassroots. And so there certainly could be some friction there. Now, the good news is Big Tent brings grassroots activity to the party, and too many people in this party don't take grassroots seriously. So Big Tent and Ozinga bring a big piece of the puzzle. It's just not the only piece of the puzzle. And if you're leading an organization like HRO, you got to understand that. So I could see that being a point of contention as well. All right, well, we'll keep digging on this. We'll keep looking for more information. Either way, I don't know that this is going to change much. As we said, McCombie tends to lead things on her own. So I don't know that this is going to be a big change. HRO is definitely starting to ramp up. They've had some candidate announcements, which we'll talk about. They've got some things cooking, and they're out there pushing to the press. So it does look like HRO is really starting to spin things up. So we'll keep an eye on it and certainly keep people posted on what's going on. All right, let's go to one of my favorite, but least favorite topics, which is hypocrisy in politics. It's one of my biggest frustrations is these politicians who like to make rules for other people, but don't like to follow their rules themselves. And we're seeing this in two major stories that we're going to cover. The first one that I want to talk about is Welch and unionization. So this has been on our agenda for, I don't know, Lane could tell us, like 2 months, maybe 3 months, where it's been a story that's just kind of been like in the back of the news. No one's really covered it, but Welch's employees in the House Speaker's office have been wanting to unionize for months, and they've been trying to unionize for a pretty long time. Chris could probably tell us how long it's been. And they've been blocked every step of the way. And somehow, some way, this has been kept out of like mainstream news, but it's news. And it hit big news because we got to Labor Day this past weekend. And wouldn't you know it, Labor Day, there's Welch putting out a pro-worker, pro-union message on his social media. Meanwhile, the Illinois Legislative Staff Association took a giant sledgehammer to Welch for blocking their efforts to unionize. And that finally seemed to hit the press a little bit. Curious everybody's thoughts, but it's a union topic. So, of course, we've got to start with Chris. Curious your thoughts on this, Chris, about just the my angle is hypocrisy. You'll probably have more of an angle on the union side of this, but I don't understand how you've got Welch and the Democrats screaming that they're so pro-union, and yet their employees want to unionize. And not only are they not embracing it, they seem to be doing everything they can to stop it, though they're saying that they're not. What's your perspective on this, Chris?
So I'll certainly agree with the hypocrisy angle here. It's do as I say, not as I do. And, this is something the elites always do. They try and present a progressive agenda, but they don't actually follow a progressive agenda in terms of their daily lives. But I'd like to take this kind of in a different direction. And that's, once again, in terms of Welch's incompetency as Speaker of the House. You're right, Collin, that the House Speaker staff has tried to unionize many times before. This isn't anything new. But Welch, when it was Madigan, everybody kind of got taken care of. So there wasn't really a need for a union. Welch just sucks at his job, and he can't get people in line over there. Can't really get the caucus in line the same way the old man could. So now Welch has got this union breathing down his neck, and he really doesn't know what to do about it other than kind of just tell him to go kick rocks. And it's not really working for him. And then I don't think it's going to work out for him in the long term either. I mean, at some point, I think if more and more of these debacles keep coming up, and this is more of a minor one, all things considered, but if Welch continuously can't do his job and more incumbents lose this upcoming primary, I don't know if he'll have a job as Speaker of the House come next go around.
I mean, one would think based on performance, but obviously there's racial politics at play, as there always is in politics. And I don't know that the Democrats could move on from him unless he was a giant, like had a huge scandal. But to your point about performance, from a performance perspective, yes, it should be a conversation. I just don't know that politically it ever would be.
Well, I think it's also like, interestingly, like it's another layer on this, like where Democrats claim to be pro-union, we're all that, we're pro-union, we're there for you, all this stuff, but then their actions don't match it. Like here you've got Welch blocking a union from forming within his own office. You've got J.B. Pritzker vetoing the Ameren bill and the nuclear bill that the unions both supported. Like they're creating an opening here, I believe, that if they're not careful, it could backfire big time.
And yeah, we're going to get into the topic you just hinted at next in the agenda. So stop breaking my agenda, buddy. Come on. You keep doing this to me every week. I send you the agenda. You know what the topics are. Stay on topic, man.
You know what would be a good idea here is if the Republican staff, maybe they should unionize. And maybe we should let them unionize. Maybe that would be a nice little press day. The Republican staff unionize and it was all good. Sing kumbaya. Be really nice. Get some of the staff some nice benefits in the end. This could work out for everybody here. I don't know.
Listen, I don't know the policy of any of that. I just know the politics, and that would be a pretty awesome PR hit. So, I mean, just from a political stance and from a PR stance, that's a pretty awesome idea. Now, I don't know, legislatively or politically or from a policy standpoint, if that even works, but it would be pretty fun to highlight that hypocrisy. That's for sure. As Michael said, let's jump to the next topic because it is very similar to what we're talking about here, which is I'm going to go a little bit out of our agenda because Michael kind of changed my topics here on me a little bit. So let's go to what Michael said, which was Pritzker and the trade unions, because there is some frustration with trade unions and Pritzker right now, and it seems to be bubbling over. As Michael said, you had the Ameren veto, you had the nuke veto, and it seems like Pritzker's starting to take some heat from these unions. And I heard someone reported that he was actually disinvited to an IBEW conference. There's a lot going on here. Chris, is there more to this story? What's going on over here?
I mean, it's basically what you just said, Collin. I mean, it's been loss after loss at the governor's desk for organized labor, and there doesn't really seem to be an end in sight for there. It's not like you can take Governor Pritzker out, and it seems like they have the legislators behind them. And sure, you have the crazy tree huggers who will never let this legislation get passed. But it seems like they have the legislators, and even the Republicans seem to be coming along on a lot of these bills, and they just can't get past the governor's desk. So it's going to be a really, really long way to go for the governor to make up with organized labor. There's also the problem with the I-55 expansion that organized labor wanted and other people didn't want. So there's a long list of issues with the unions in the governor's office right now. And the issue is just going to be is whether or not there's more of a wedge to be driven there. JB's not going to be on the ballot again until 2026, but it does give Republicans enough time to actually make these relationships and reach out to them. There is word that unions are willing to get more involved with Republicans on a more day-to-day basis at the state level, just because they have to deal with the tree huggers in the legislator, and they have to deal with the governor who'll veto their bills. And they're going to need Republicans in a lot of these bills to overturn some of these vetoes.
Well, the interesting thing is Pritzker got elected, especially the first time, on the backs of a ton of union support. I mean, there was more hatred for Ronner than there was support of Pritzker from those unions. But they were a significant chunk of how he got that nomination and then how he got the election. Now, as he's chasing the progressive base, he seems to be moving away from those unions. And as Michael, as you said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because you mentioned this creates an opening, and it absolutely does create an opening. I mean, as Chris mentioned, at in the Capitol, that Ameren bill, we've talked about it. It from a policy standpoint makes no sense. And yet you saw that it had huge support from both Republicans and Democrats in the legislature because the unions wanted it. And then Pritzker went and vetoed it. So there is certainly a movement here from the Republican side to work more, especially with trade unions, which is a good thing. And as Pritzker goes further and further left, this does create an opportunity for us.
I mean, yeah, a lot of these bills are bipartisan, like you said, like, you know, it's this small group that Pritzker is kind of caving to over and over and over again because he thinks that that's going to score him points on the national level. But then you look at these bills and it's like, okay, he's shutting down power plants. He's driving up energy costs all over the place. And then he has these opportunities in a bipartisan way to kind of help bring the cost down a little bit with this nuclear bill, with the Ameren bill. There's some other bills kind of down the road that could also be very helpful and get people's energy bills down. And as soon as the progressives and the environmentalists call them and say, hey, we don't like this. Okay, well, I'm vetoing it. And here we are. We're just going to be buying our energy from our neighbors, Missouri, Indiana, and it's just going to drive the cost up even more on top of what it already is. It's just bad.
Well, I know last cycle, the Republicans down in Springfield were predicting that energy costs would be a huge issue in the general election. It didn't seem to bubble up as much as it could have and should have, but that's been the prediction since CEJA, is that energy costs are going to keep going up and up and up to the point where voters are actually going to pay attention and care about it. And we're seeing those bills go up. I haven't seen energy costs specifically really show up in polls as a major driving issue for voters, but these bills keep going up. I mean, we're hearing about how ComEd needs to recoup, or Exelon needs to recoup, what, 1.1 billion from ratepayers. There's other cost increase that are coming down the pipeline here for energy costs throughout the state. I mean, this is a very real issue, and I know businesses are especially very frustrated about energy costs. Manufacturers, it's a big issue in the state, is their energy costs, because the bills just keep going through the roof. So, I mean, this very well could be an issue that's at play in the 2024 elections. All right, any other thoughts here on this? As a matter of fact, we should give an update because this has also been in our agenda for like 2 months. We mentioned how on the veto of the nuke bill, that it could come up in the veto session to override it in October or November. What we're hearing from the sponsor and from some of the people involved with these discussions is that Welch is going to refuse to call the bill, which means the veto is going to stand. So the bipartisan nuke bill that everyone agrees is a good idea, and I'm not pulling a Trumpism there, literally everyone agrees that this is a good idea, except for Pritzker and some of the environmentalists. It looks like it's not even going to get called for a veto override in either October or November during the 2 weeks of veto session. So this thing gets dragged out till next year, and they got to try all over again instead of it being passed this year and being able to move forward. So it looks like that veto is going to stand. We'll see what happens with the Ameren veto, but it looks like Welch is going to protect his buddy Pritzker, and these things aren't even going to come up for a vote, is what it seems like.
But Collin, could we just talk about really quick how like the veto of the nuclear bill and not calling that up is the dumbest thing ever, because like what the progressives and the environmentalists like seem to not grasp is that in order for their like clean energy vision to take place, you need a foundational energy supply, and nuclear energy can provide that. Like, unfortunately for them, wind and solar are not going to provide the supply needed, to let the grid function. And nuclear energy is a clean way to provide the base power supply needed. Because that ties right into Michael's point of, if we don't have nuclear energy and we shut down all these coal plants in Southern Illinois, all we're doing is we're buying not clean energy from Iowa, Indiana, Missouri, and we're not actually solving this problem that environmentals want to deal with. Like, they want this their way or the highway approach, and their way is just fundamentally wrong.
Well, then JB Pritzker and those guys can say, hey, at least we're not doing it here. It's like, China's causing most of the problems, but we're self-loathing here and just want to punish ourselves.
Well, and listen, it's the difference between good politics and good policy. It's great politics to say we're protecting the environment, especially when you've got the media on your side and they don't call you out on it. I mean, everyone knows that this is actually bad environmental policy, but the Pritzker and the Democrats are not being called out on it. So they're able to get away with it. And so they can say, look, we're protecting the environment. I think the same can be said for smart carbon and carbon capture, where you have these efforts to capture carbon dioxide, which everyone agrees is part of the problem or a major part of the problem with climate change. And there's a solution here to capture it and store it underground. And yet these environmentalists are like, no, we don't want that. Every time there's an attempt to try to actually do something about the environment and make positive progress, these environmentalists just don't want to do it. It seems like their only solution, the only thing they want is to go back to the Stone Age. That's the only thing they're going to accept. Any sort of actual solution to try to do something about improving our environment, they're just not going to be for.
Which is like kind of ironic, considering that if they actually like went with these real solutions, they can like have this like gigantic political victory. But the more and more we go down the path we're on, like it might start to backfire on, because these nuclear energy bills, like we talked about, backed by labor, good labor jobs, carbon capture, like these are things that are probably going to start to gain support momentum again amongst various interest groups, and there's a real possibility this could backfire on them.
Yeah, but you got to remember, John, there's other interest groups at play here. Collin mentioned wind, or maybe you did, wind and solar, all these things. You think those guys don't got lobbyists? They got lobbyists, and they're doing the same things that our guys are doing.
Yeah, and you're right, Chris. The difference is they've got do-gooder lobbyists who don't have a lot of money behind them, whereas when these unions come to play, when the businesses come to play, the unions have bodies and money. Businesses have bodies, sometimes money if they want to really come to play. I mean, the thing with the environmental groups is, yeah, they've got lobbyists, but they don't have, unless you're a true believer, they just don't have a lot of political clout. But they're finding they've got Pritzker and some other progressives who they have their ear, and it seems like right now they're getting whatever they want. Oliver, you were kind of doing the pump. I know you were having some mic issues before, so you muted yourself, but you got to jump in here.
So, it's a weird time when Jonathan and I agree on things more than once, like in a week. So I appreciate that. I just see this all the time. It's like the issue of immigration. We have all these, hypothetical solutions to the immigration problem, but when we go to actually present a solution, like you see it in Congress all the time, like, oh no, we can't actually do that. We just want to complain and score political points. And I feel like this is like the same issue kind of here in Illinois.
And God forbid we talk about how much we've reduced pollution and how much we've reduced our carbon dioxide output thanks to free market efforts over the last 10 to 20 years. Natural gas has been one of the best things for the environment as we transition to cleaner options. And no, God forbid we talk about how we're actually making progress, because you can't fundraise on things going well. You can only fundraise on saying the sky is falling. So the sky has to always be falling. Yeah.
Stop all the logic, gosh.
Well, and here's the other side of this, which is, as it seems like we're starting to open the door to make more progress with unions as Republicans and conservatives, we then have groups like the Freedom Caucus coming out and demanding that the Illinois Republican Party excommunicate anyone who takes any campaign donations from the teachers' unions, it's just, the problem is, there's a big difference between the Chicago Teachers Union and all other teachers unions. And I don't know that these political people have enough brains to understand that concept, that yes, CTU is one of the furthest left groups on the planet, let alone in Illinois. But the rest of the teachers unions actually tend to be a bit more moderate. And there was a time when they'd split their donations between Republicans and Democrats. As Republicans, especially under Ronner, lost the support of unions, that equation changed. But the more that Republicans went to more with these unions, the more it forced these especially these suburban and rural teachers unions to become more and more progressive, when frankly they weren't naturally that progressive. And so to basically overtly say, let's just declare war on all teachers unions, instead of saying the one teachers union that's ridiculously far left progressive, let's just declare war on all of them, just seems like a pretty dumb strategy. But I don't know, could just be me.
No, Collin, this is the dumbest thing that the Freedom Caucus has said this week, because the teachers union,
you have to qualify as just this week, because it's a long list if you don't.
That would be bold there, John.
It's a short week.
Look, the IEA is it becomes more bipartisan. My mom's a teacher, and every time around election cycle, they get these nice mailers with all their endorsements. Last cycle, they endorsed Dan Brady, who was a statewide candidate. They can routinely, endorse Tony McCombie, Jeff Kiker. Like, they support Republicans. And, in a time when Republicans are also, looking for avenues to, build different coalitions, but also financial support. I mean, in Dan Brady's 2022, primary race, the Illinois Education Association gave him over $100,000 in campaign donations. Like, his race was kept afloat because of the teachers unions. Like, these people had the ability to help fund races and, give Republicans the resources needed to flip some of these seats, because they might give McCombie, we'll say $50,000. Well, Tony can put the money into competitive seats in the suburbs or downstate. Like, we should be taking every dollar we can get, because we're always going to be outspent by Democrats. But, if people want to give us money, we should be willing to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I've never understood this whole concept of turning down money in politics. If you want to say we need to be stronger about the way we vote, okay, fine. You want to say, hey, I want to see us, be stronger on X, Y, and Z issues. Okay, great. But just because I take money from a group doesn't mean I have to vote the way that they want me to vote. I mean, there's this belief in politics that nobody has a backbone anymore. So if you take money, you're just owned by that group. If I ever run for office, which thank God I'm not dumb enough to do that, but if I ever do and someone wants to cut me $100K, I'm going to take the $100K. I don't care where it's from, because I'm going to use that for good. Maybe it came from a source that wasn't a great source, but I'm going to put it to good use. It's not about where it came from. It's about where it goes. And someone with a history gives me $100K. I might not use it for political purposes if they've got a bad history, but I'm not giving it back. I'm putting that into a good charity in my district. Like, you can use that money for good. And yet there's this, don't get this. Like, we're just going to turn down campaign cash at a time when Republicans are desperately needing campaign cash. Makes no sense to me. And we're going to excommunicate them from the party because they took this money. Like, I don't understand this belief that the Republican Party has even the ability to do that, let alone the desire. Oliver, what are you shaking your head about?
I've said it before and I'll say it again. We live in Illinois, a blue state. We do not have enough Republicans to start kicking people out. When we start winning races statewide, we can start kicking people out. But until then, just get over it and win some elections.
Look at Freedom
I just
Caucus
wish that
and
some
all
of these
members,
people would spend
start
more
cutting
of their
$100,000
time
check.
and energy. Oh, John, we're talking at the same time, I guess, Jonathan.
Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. I just wish that some of these people would spend more of their time and energy going after Democrats for once. Like, there's so many of them. And it would be wonderful if we could kind of beat up on them a little bit instead of, taking the next 5 months, between now and March to beat up on ourselves.
I mean, a little bit of this we have to beat up on ourselves because we're in primary season, but that's about the primaries, not about this garbage. Like, to your point, this stuff isn't worthwhile. Now, yes, primaries are a natural part of our party. We have to have some of these inter-party fights between now and March, but for dumb stuff like this, on that, I agree with you, Michael. All right, let's go to more hypocrisy. I mentioned there were two hypocrisy stories. We'd only gotten to one. And sticking with the teachers union subject, let's talk about that far, far left progressive Chicago teachers union, because it was revealed this week that CTU president Stacey Davis Gates, who is so far left, she might actually go all the way around the circle and then come back even still again further left. And she has been a vocal opponent of school choice, and a frequently cited critic of anything related to school choice, the Invest in Kids Act, anything related to anyone wanting to have some ability to maybe send their kids where they want with the money that they send to the government for their kids' education. And it was released this week that Stacey Davis Gates, so even though she goes out and screams that no one else should be able to send their kids to private school, it is a travesty. You hate public schools. If you even think about wanting to fund private schools or send your kids to private schools, even charter schools, they are evil, they are racist. And now here she is sending her son to a private school. So it is just yet again another one of these topics of these politicians, and right now more on the left than the right in Illinois. That could just be the law of averages, since there's way more on the left right now. But either way, you've got these politicians who make rules for others and don't want to follow them for themselves. They get huge press for being champions of an issue, and yet they're doing the exact opposite thing in their private lives. This is the kind of stuff that just drives me crazy. Anybody have thoughts on this?
It's just, more policy that's just really infuriating me, where the fact, like, we can't renew the Illinois Invest in Kids Act, which helps low-income kids go to private schools and access, a quality of education that they might not be able to in their public school. And yet the same people who are saying, no, we cannot have this piece of legislation renewed, are sending their kids to private schools. Like, if these public schools were so great and wonderful, why do you need to send your kid to private schools? Like, it's just so infuriating that, we can't have policies that open up doors for others, which is a big thing on the Democratic side, all because we have to placate to the teachers union in Chicago, and just so much hypocrisy on this issue. It's ridiculous.
Well, and honestly, we could be playing this up even more politically, because great, I'm glad that Davis Gates can afford to send her kids to a private school. What about those families, especially in lower income communities, that can't afford to send their kids to private schools, that can't afford to get their kids the best possible education? What about these Black and brown neighborhoods in Chicago and other communities around the state, especially in some of these urban areas throughout the state, that can't afford it? What about people in these rural communities that can't afford to do it? I'm so glad she can afford to do it, but what about the rest of these people that we're supposed to be serving and focused on? I mean, there's a class discussion here to be had that Republicans are often uncomfortable to have that conversation. But honestly, I mean, this is a giant opening for us right here.
Collin, this is music to my ears. Never in my life did I thought Collin Corbett was ever going to discuss class on the smoke-filled room. And you're 100% right, Collin. I mean, the Archdiocese of Chicago is closing schools every year because nobody goes to them anymore. That's for another number of reasons. The Archdiocese is not run properly, and I can go on with that for a while. But we're taking money away, possibilities away from these kids in poor neighborhoods to go to a good Catholic school. I mean, I'm a product of Catholic schools, and I wish all people could go to Catholic schools at a good, affordable rate. But it's a law of supply and demand. Less people go, you're going to have to charge more for tuition to keep the lights on. And taking away things like the Invest in Kids Act just takes away that possibility for these kids to get the good quality. And if you're Catholic, good Catholic education to learn about your faith and everything. But no, we got to keep sending our kids to the Chicago public schools where they might be taught by a communist. Who knows with how that union's going, but it's just sad. It's really despicable.
And the argument I hear a lot about Invest in Kids specifically is it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope to school choice, and we can't allow that to happen. Listen, I'd like to have a conversation about school choice, but that's not going to happen in this state, and I get it. But what I can't stand is the slippery slope argument. That drives me crazy. Either it's good policy or it's not good policy. Could the next policy on this slope be a bad one? Yes. And so we just don't enact that policy. But the idea that we can't back a good policy because it might open the door and make the other side have an opening in an argument to push their next policy, which that one might be bad. I just can't stand that. Either this policy is good or this policy is bad. The whole slippery slope concept drives me crazy. Michael, you were looking to jump in. You got a thought?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, we had kids all over the state that were taking advantage of this program, getting a high quality education. Like, we went the entire summer where it was like, is this going to get voted on or not? We didn't really even know. So now you've got these kids that were going to a private school or a charter school, and now they're back in public school. Now we may or may not vote on this in October. And then it's like, we're just going to have these kids switching back and forth, like public, private, like it's a total joke.
Yeah, I'll be interested, Michael. I haven't heard much about that, but I think you're making a decent point. I don't know how the timing works out with all that, but I do think that's something that I'd love to learn more about where we are in that timeline, because yanking kids out of where they currently go to school because of a political fight would be pretty stupid. So I think you're onto a decent point there. Actually, you know what? I won't even qualify. Michael, I think you're onto a good point. I'll give you credit. Maybe your groupies will like me more if I say something nice about you.
It's good.
All right, let's move to the next topic. Sticking with you, Michael, though I'm sure others will have thoughts on this. Donald Trump Jr., so not the big guy, but the little guy, well, one of the little guys, is coming to Illinois. Now, he is mostly coming to promote his book, but while he's here, he's got a fundraiser with the McHenry County GOP, or GOPAC, I'm sorry, McHenry County GOPAC, which is interesting that they were able to get him. I think that's a huge get. And then a fundraiser for Darren Bailey, which obviously is a big topic since Bailey is trying to get Trump's endorsement, Trump Sr.'s endorsement in his race against Mike Bost. So big news here. And he's not just doing a book signing, he is doing an event for and with Darren Bailey. So this isn't just he's got a book stop and Bailey's going to pop in and try to get a selfie with him, which is very Bailey, by the way. This is an actual event that he's hosting with Darren Bailey. So a big get for Darren, big news for his campaign. Michael, what are you hearing about all this?
Yeah, it's like you said, books that's to promote this letters to Trump book, and they're signing copies and taking photos and all of that. 2 fundraisers, one up north, one down here. Obviously, these book style fundraisers, you kind of have higher overhead because usually you have to commit to selling a certain number of books or keeping them. If you don't sell, like the state party did one earlier this year with Ari Fleischer, and they still have books that they're trying to get rid of. So these are tough fundraisers, but if that's how you're going to be able to get in the same room with somebody like Trump Jr., then I guess you got to do it.
Yeah, every Republican Party event I go to at this point, I'm handed another Ari Fleischer book. I'm like, guys, you've already given me this 3 times. So you're right. Is that how they got Trump Jr. to do this? Is it more about just the fact that Trump Jr. needed book tour stops and Darren Bailey can fill a room? I mean, what's the back end of this that you know, or at least that you're able to share? How'd this all come about?
Yeah, a lot of people probably, or not maybe a lot of people, but people kind of within our circles are probably familiar with Brett Corrigan, who worked on the Bailey campaign last cycle. He was kind of a body man. He's working for Winning Publishing. It's the publisher that's publishing all of these Trump books, Carrie Lake's book, those kind of things. So that seems to be kind of where they got their in at, is that he's staffing these events anyway. He's got that contact and they're taking advantage of it.
Michael, I'm sorry. You said the name of that publisher was Winning Publishing?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's
the people you said whose books they're promoting all lost. Are they allowed to still use that name?
What do you mean, Collin? Carrie Lake won.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, right, sorry.
They're so serious about that too, by the way. Like do not
it's Winning Team Publishing.
Still got the word winning in there. What is this, like the return of Charlie Sheen?
True.
Look, Collin, they publish fantasy novels because all these people are living in fantasy land thinking they won.
You know what? I think they'd sell more of these if they had like the cover that you typically see on fantasy novels. Like I've seen this meme go around with like the Trump head, but like, you know, the big buff body beneath. Like do some of that, maybe like, you know, a risque fake photo of I don't know, Carrie Lake or somebody. Like, you know, if they were to go that fantasy route, they might sell more books.
Donald Trump fan fiction. We have a new era of literature upon us.
I feel like it is all kind of fan fiction. So
through this politics stuff, we're writing Donald Trump fan fiction.
I feel like that's actually what we have if you just go on social media is Donald Trump fan fiction. So we're just living in it. We're not actually just calling it fiction anymore. All right. Any thoughts on what this does for the campaign? I mean, this is a direct tie to Trump in the 12th district for Darren Bailey. We can't pretend that this isn't a boost for Darren Bailey in that race.
Oh,
it is a feather in his cap, but I would also say that, with a grain of salt, kind of, because, I mean, look at the Missouri Senate race this last election cycle. Like Trump Jr. was pushing hard for Eric Greitens and doing events with him. His Kimberly Guilfoyle, his girlfriend or wife or whatever she is at the moment, was like on staff for Greitens, and they were putting the pressure on the Trump team all the time about, we need you to endorse Eric Greitens, and Trump chose not to do so. So just because you've got this event with Trump Jr. doesn't mean that it's going to materialize into something greater.
Yeah, listen, Trump Jr. gives you an excuse to say the name Trump. Trump Jr. by himself means basically nothing, but it does give you an excuse to say the name Trump, and it may help open that door into Trump. To be honest, from what I've heard politically, you've got a better chance getting to Trump through Trump's son-in-law, whose name is escaping me at the moment. Hopefully, one of you guys remember where I can Google him.
Jared Kushner.
Yeah, Kushner. You got a better chance of getting to Trump through Kushner than you do Don Jr. But either way, it is a get for Bailey. But I don't know. For me, I don't know how many votes Don Jr. himself moves. Now get Ivanka, and I might consider supporting it because my wife and I are of all the Trumps, Ivanka's the one we're the biggest fans of. But yeah, she doesn't tend to do that. Don Jr. just doesn't do anything for me.
Well, right. Well, Ivanka's not liked by the conservative base because they view her as a rhino, and the reason why Donald Trump's presidency wasn't as good as it could have been. Same thing with her husband. In any case, this isn't a death blow for the boss campaign. I mean, at the least, it's a headache for like a couple months because all Darren Bailey's going to do is post a selfie he's going to take with Donald Trump Jr. all over social media. At worst, it's a bad omen, and it's something you're probably going to want to try to get your ducks in a row here. Making sure 45's still on your side. This is just his stupid idiot son going off and doing something on his own. I would make those phone calls now if I were team boss just to make sure we're all on the same page here. But it's just going to be a headache. This probably picks Bailey up a few votes, but this doesn't end the election today.
I mean,
I wouldn't even give him that much credit.
In theory, it could be good for fundraising, which is what Bailey needs the most. So let's see how that fundraiser does and see what numbers come out of it. But Bailey, really the big thing, we've talked about it in previous weeks. What he needs right now is campaign cash. And it looks like, if I'm correct, the date of this fundraiser is before the end of the third quarter, right? Isn't it in September?
It's October 27th.
Well, it's October. So there you go. Maybe this is what Bailey uses to say, hey, my Q3 report wasn't good, but I got a great fundraiser coming up in 10 days. So maybe that's what this is used for. But this is the one thing he needs most right now is fundraising. So let's see how this materializes if they're able to raise some money for this. Matt, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, the Trump campaign has so much more to think about than what Don Jr. is doing on a given night. And Don Jr.'s always just kind of been showing up at random places because he likes the attention. He's never really like a political powerhouse like his dad is. He's just rides the coattail of his dad. So I think he's just in it for a book deal. And Darren Bailey said, hey, we'll buy a bunch of books and we'll fill a room. And Don Jr. thinks, hey, I'm already going to be in the area. I might as well. That, to my opinion, is the extent of the whole thing. I don't think it has really anything to do with the Trump campaign. And Bailey's just trying to frame it that way when it's not.
Well, we'll see. It's all going to play out. Anybody ever see, I don't know if you guys watch Futurama. It's one of my favorite shows. Anybody watch Futurama, or is it just me? Just me. Well, for any of our watchers or viewers who enjoy good TV and watch Futurama, it reminds me of the Trump family, reminds me of especially the boys, remind me of mom and her kids, where she's always slapping them and always calling them stupid. Just their relationship just kind of reminds me of that. But if you don't watch Futurama, you won't get the reference. But I know we've got a couple people who are Futurama fans like me, because we talk about it on Facebook. So they will enjoy the reference. All right. So we've found a way to focus on more meaty and enjoyable topics, but this is the first week that petitions can be passed to get on the ballot in the state of Illinois. So there is a ridiculous amount of campaign news. We've cut it back to the 12 headlines that mean the most. And let's see if we can get through all 12 in 10 minutes or less. These are, I'll tell you, we cut out like 20 others that are in districts that are either so Republican or so Democrat it doesn't matter, or things that we've kind of already hinted at before. We're trying to give you the 12 biggest things that you need to know in the first week of petition passing. So let's go through these one by one and let's see how quickly we can do it. First things first, John Egofske is not running for House District 82. You've heard us talk about it the last couple of weeks. He is not running. He's finally made that clear. He is endorsing Nicole Laha. Everyone calls her Laha because her last name, I don't even know how to say it. Does anyone know how to properly say this? I don't want to butcher it.
Like Zwiercan or something like that, but I know her as Nicole Laha.
Everyone calls her Laha because the last part you don't know how to say. Anyways, he's backing her. It looks like HRO is backing her. It does seem like, from what we're hearing, that Grasso is going to run in that race, not for IL6, though that's still just a rumor. So it looks like there might be a primary race here for Durkin's old seat. in a fairly Republican district between Nicole and Gary Grasso, which will probably get bloody, knowing the players involved. What are you guys hearing on this race?
Yeah, it sounds like John just didn't want to keep driving down to Springfield over and over again. He wanted to focus on being Larry Lamont. So God bless him. He's still going to be involved in public service, and we thank him for serving in the House. He's already come out and endorsed Nicole, which is a testament that it seems like everybody who's anybody in this district is going to be lining up behind Nicole in this race. It's not just HRO and it's not just the state part, the House party and all that stuff. It's everybody and all the committeemen, all the local players, elected officials. It seems like all of them are pretty much inclined to support Nicole. Grasso seems like he's going to run anyway. I don't know who's going to support him. At this point, I think this race is like 65-35. Nicole is going to win, and then we're going to go to the general and win by like 7 or 8.
We'll see. I will say this. Grasso actually is known in that area because he's been an elected official for a while. Nicole does not necessarily have that kind of chops. Now she'll have a lot of backers, but if you were to pull it right now, I'd imagine that Grasso is going to be up pretty significantly. So I don't disagree that by March those numbers could change, but I will say that if you were to pull it right now, that's not what the numbers would look like. So they do have some work ahead of them to change that. You think they will? I tend to agree that you're right, that they will put in the effort and the money and the time to make that happen. But she does not start off as the front runner based on just what early polling would show.
You wish
Probably
they
not
would
based on
have started
polling,
with
but-
them to started with her to begin with and not done this kind of. I know you can't predict it, but still.
Yeah, Oliver, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so something to keep in mind. So DuPage is a big portion of this district, and whether it's this, they have this weird thing where they have a complex, and they really have a hard time supporting candidates that are not from DuPage in these districts that are split between counties. We see it in the 6th congressional district. Keith Pekow was obviously the strongest candidate in that field in the primary, but they didn't really want to get behind him because he wasn't a DuPage guy. And let's be honest, Gary Grasso isn't necessarily the most liked guy in DuPage circles, but he is a DuPage guy for lack of a better term. So there's some of them people are just going to get behind him because he's, it makes their ego feel better for these DuPage folks.
And Grasso is an old school politician. He knows how to twist arms and make subtle threats and even sometimes overt threats that you have to support him because he's done X for you and because he'll make your life miserable. He knows how to play that game. And in previous races, it's gotten him a lot of endorsements. So it remains to be seen as to who people will back. But from that DuPage side, looks like if this is the way this race plays out, I wouldn't count Grasso out.
Yeah, Darren,
because we want
to. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. I want to move us along. These first couple topics will be a little longer. The rest will be shorter. We also learned in the last week that Tom Demmer will not be running for Win Stoller's previous or current seat in Senate District 37. So now that's just going to be a wide open race. It seems like nobody knows who's going to be running in that district. But what we do know is the guy people thought would be the front runner if he did run in Tom Demmer has chosen not to. Anybody have any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Tom Demmer isn't going to be running, but he can still be very influential in this race. Remember, he's sitting on, roughly $300,000 in his campaign account. If there's someone who he really likes in that race, he could give him a financial edge. But Ryan Spain isn't going to be running. Nobody knows what Bradley Fritz is going to do. So, like you said, Colin, this is going to be a wide open race for a very safe, Senate seat.
Yeah, and Demmer's pretty well liked there. So even beyond the money, which I agree with, just having his support takes you pretty far in that district. So we'll keep a close eye on it. All right, Matt, let's go up to your area, House District 51, one of the best pickup opportunities for Republicans in the state of Illinois. And we've known this for a while. I will give make sure everybody knows, just FYI, we have been involved in some degree in this race, and so we haven't been able to say anything for a while. But Tosi Ufodike is a Ela Township trustee, a local business owner and mom, and she's going to be running in House District 51. And on paper, she's giving people a lot of hope that we could flip that district. She looks like a potentially pretty exciting candidate. Matt, what are you hearing about that district?
Yeah, the 51st, that'll be definitely a top pickup opportunity. Chris Boss had that seat. And then last cycle he lost 47-53 to Nabeela Syed. She's young, energetic. I'm talking about Nabeela, and she raised a lot of money. So we need an energetic candidate. and someone who would look good on paper against Nabeela. So Tosi is announcing next week. A lot of people are already reporting that they hear that she's running. It's kind of leaking out, the rumor mill going around. So that's why we're talking about it now. But this will be a race that a lot of people are watching, both on the Republican side and the Democrat side. So everything needs to be done right in order for her to win. And the Democrats know that they can lose this seat, so they will put a lot of money behind Nabeela.
Yeah, I mean, the district is an R6 district just as a district. But to your point, between Boss either underperforming or Syed overperforming or both, she won it by 6.5 points, which is a 12.5 point swing from frankly what the district should be. So yes, on paper it looks like a great opportunity, but Nabeela has shown an ability to significantly overperform. So it's going to be a really tough race. It's a race in the suburbs, which Republicans don't tend to do super well in. So here's the hope that this race can be a solid win. I know Leader McCombie has taken a personal interest in this race. And it looks like the HRO is going to be taking a front row seat on running this race. So we're going to be watching it very closely. We certainly hope that Tosi does very well in the race. This is right next to my house. I live just outside this district. So I'll be watching it very, very closely because I'm going to be getting all the ads for this race. So we'll keep a close eye on it. And of course, we really hope we can flip the district, flip it back because this never should have been lost. All right, let's start speeding up here on these updates. Jim Carris is officially in IL-10. We've talked about it a few times, but he has now officially announced, Matt, for Illinois 10th District race, setting up a primary between him and Joe Severino. Any thoughts on Jim Carris officially getting into the race?
Yeah, his announcement is a little interesting. It was by press release and email. He didn't really do an event, but still a strong showing. Just he has people on social media who are sharing things. Definitely going strong against Severino, so we'll see how that plays out. His
Against
main
who?
issues, Severino.
There you go.
People have been going after him, yes. So he has an interesting message. His big things is national security, taxes, and safety. The interesting thing is national security, because I wouldn't have thought that would be one of the big issues that someone running for Congress in the 10th would focus on. So we'll see how that evolves.
Well, so
Also,
actually, that's kind of interesting. We don't have time to go into this because we're short on time. So that's why I'm shutting you down a little bit. But I will say the 10th district actually is a huge national security district, thanks to Mark Kirk. It's always been a major issue for Republicans in that district. But if you look at the actual issue, he's not actually talking about national security. He's talking about immigration. And our polling, maybe this is something we can jump into next week as a bigger topic. Our polling shows that right now in Republican primaries, immigration is by far the number one issue. We've seen it now in multiple polls. So what I'm interested in is why they're talking about immigration, but calling it national security, because immigration is a great issue for you if you want to speak like a conservative in a primary without necessarily pigeonholing yourself and screwing you in the general. So why aren't they just going straight at it and calling it immigration? I think probably because it's the 10th district and they know that Kirk and Dold focus very heavily on national security. And some of the people involved with this race were involved with those races in the past. So it's not surprising to see that national security focus, but I think they might be trying to get a little too cute. We'll have to see. All right, let's go even faster here. These next couple ones, just quick hits. So Oliver, Aaron Porter has joined the House District 81 race. So now there are two candidates, him and Laura Hoyce, who are running or are vying to go against Stava-Murray.
Yeah, so just a quick note here. So this is actually a proxy war, more or less. So Aaron Porter is a Naperville copy, young guy, seems like a good, good candidate. So he's being supported by Greg Bolts. Greg Bolts and Laura Hoyce hate each other. Greg Bolts is the local assessor. She ran against him one year, and they've hated each other ever since. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out of this race, who wins that fight. But at least we have some competition for that race.
Hopefully, whoever comes out can actually make that a race, because House District 81 isn't tier 1, but it could be very, very close if we have the right candidate. All right, Oliver and Chris, either one of you might have thoughts. Jason Helland is running for Illinois Appellate Court in the 3rd District. Wasn't super successful in his last run for office. Doesn't have the greatest ratings. What are you guys hearing about him as a candidate for Illinois Appellate Court?
So I'm glad someone's stepping up, because I've been hammering to a 3rd Appellate Court district since like April,
May.
trying to find people.
Yeah.
May, yeah, trying to find people. And Judge Skorin is from DuPage has been the only one who's announced. Now we got Jason Helland. I would be happy, except I remember from last cycle, Helland ran for judge out in Grundy's circuit, something like that. Either way, and I remember he had the worst judicial ratings I had ever seen. I don't know what this guy did as Grundy County State's Attorney to upset the entire legal community, but this guy bombed at the legal ratings last cycle. I don't know if he's made nice with them, but I don't know. I don't know if this is the end of the line for Jason Helland, but that's the only thing I know about the guy beyond that. I just remember his ratings were terrible.
If you're running for judge in Illinois, you have got to take that judicial poll seriously, and some of these candidates don't. And it's a ridiculous process. Basically, the Illinois bar contacts and mails attorneys, and you can run up the score if you know what the heck you're doing, or you can get bombed like Helland did here. And it looks like they just didn't take it seriously. They didn't have a game plan. Every candidate that we at CORE have for judge, a major part of it is making sure we're prepared for that judicial poll, because voters really put a lot of stock in that poll. So we'll have to see. Oliver, I want to jump to you, but we just got to keep moving. So I apologize.
No,
I'm
no
going to go to the next one. Chris already hit the major points. Michael, Angela Evans is now primarying Dave Severin in House District 116. Looks like this is a Darren Bailey special. What's going on there?
Yeah, so Dave's, I think, going to probably set the record for most consecutive primaries. This is his third in a row. Obviously, all the challengers have not been successful for various reasons, but this is kind of a Darren Bailey recruit. They are running around together all over the Labor Day weekend, taking all sorts of selfies. So we'll see how it plays out. It's kind of interesting that she's also from Franklin County, which is Dave Severin's home county as well. So that's a vulnerability, I think, for her, because her base of support is gonna conflict with his. If they would have found somebody on the other side of the district, I think they probably would have had a little more success, but we'll see how it plays out.
All right, let's go to the next one. Desi Anderson, who was making the rounds at the state fair and at the Republican activities, kind of hinting that there was something coming. We now know what that something is. She's going to be running against Sharon Chung, which is a district that we came really close in as a party last time around. And so there's a lot of hope that possibly the Republicans could do something there in House District 91. Desi ran for 46 on the Senate District 46 last cycle, and seems like a promising candidate, definitely a likable person. There's a lot of hope that she'll do well in that district. Anybody have thoughts about Desi before we jump to the next thing?
Look, I know you suburbanites love your suburban districts, but this is a really good pickup opportunity for us. DeVore won the district by 3 points. Demmer won the district. JB barely won it. She performed relatively well in this district when she ran for state senate. So, I think this is another one of those downstate pickup opportunities that we can really lean into, especially in a district where, Trump doesn't hurt you as much being on the top of the ticket.
Yeah, listen, this district, it's in our baseline, CORE's baseline, it's dead even. It is exactly even. I know that Chung won last time by 4.5 points, but this one is definitely a district that's in play. So you're not wrong, John. All right. We've mentioned it before. Seems like it's official. She's telling people she's showing up at events. Looks like Michelle Hunter is going to give it another go in House District 54. DeRay, what are you hearing about that?
Yeah, she's running. It'll be tough to win this cycle. She lost last time 40-60, so we'll see if she can do better this time. I hope she can, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the district it's only D7 in the baseline, and Canty is pretty far left. She's unabashedly progressive, so you'd think it's a district that we could get close, but as you said, 19-point loss last time around by Hunter. People had a much, much higher hopes for her in that district. So let's hope she can build on it last time. She's a very likable person, good in person, meeting people face to face. Hopefully she can translate that into a good campaign this time around. Next time, let's talk about Senate District 53. We mentioned before when we brought up the fact that there were 2 candidates on a previous episode who had announced that more would be coming. We now have the 3rd candidate who's announcing in Mike Kirkton. We're hearing that there's going to be even more. So this is probably just a quick update. Anybody have thoughts on 53, or is it just let's wait and see who else announces? Wait and see. All right, good. We keep moving because I do have a topic I'd love to get to at the end if we have time. Oliver, Jackie Williamson, Democrats, going to give it another go against Amy Grant in 47. What are you hearing there?
Yeah, so Dem seemed pretty excited about her, and everything we heard about her running last time was positive. She just didn't really have the campaign infrastructure in this conservative district. But if I was Amy Grant, I'd be a little nervous. Like, it's still a conservative district, but like Amy Grant doesn't raise money. She's a great retail politician, but like if Dems are willing to put boots on the ground and money into this race, it's going to make Amy spend more time in this race than she really should. So something to watch. I don't think she's in trouble, but I think Jackie's kind of someone that Dems have as like an up and comer, especially her DuPage.
Yeah, they do seem high on her. You're right.
Mhm.
District is R5 from our baseline. Grant won by 6 last time, so she did overperform by a point, which is good. But second try around, we've seen candidates do better second time around. So we're gonna have to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
All right, last campaign update. Chris, I don't know if you pay attention to House District 80 at all and Anthony DeLuca, but Adam Beatty is challenging him, and it's a district that some people said last time around was possibly in play. It didn't seem to play out that way, but according to our baseline, it is just D9, so it's fringy. It maybe kind of could be in play, but DeLuca overperformed by 5 points last time around, so it's not a district I would have on my radar as a tier 1 or tier 2. But anyways, curious your thoughts.
Yeah, if you look at the district, you see it takes in a lot of very, very conservative areas in Will County and such. The problem is that DeLuca was a Republican 20 years ago, and he still tries to play that middle of the road very strongly. There are people who still think Anthony DeLuca is a Republican who live in like Bloom Township in Cook County. That's because his family, he's just been around for so long. So he's a hard guy to beat. He's got a decent enough political organization out of Chicago Heights. And listen, maybe in a big wave, you might be able to get close or something happens with DeLuca, but I don't really think this is our major pickup opportunity this cycle.
Probably not. All right, let's move to Chris is going to get real excited, but 2 weeks in a row, we're going to let him talk about Chicago. There are a few topics in Chicago we got to hit. So first, we got to talk about it. Madigan is officially passing the baton to Marty Quinn. Not a surprise. Quinn's always been the heir apparent there as 13th Ward Dem committeeman. But Chris, do you want to mourn the final political act of Madigan here?
It's the end of an era. I thought if there was one thing that Madigan might try and hold on to was a 13th Ward committeeman spot. I think if he ran again, even if somebody dared to challenge him, he would not even come close to beating Mike Madigan in that seat. But Madigan is getting old, and he has a trial in April, and he's probably got a lot on his mind now. So with this marks the end of Mike Madigan's career as an elected official, be it in government or a political party. Part of it's sad, and not just, I'm not trying to be the Democrat here, but just think about it from a pure political history perspective, is that the man's been around since 1968 in this position, 69 in this position, and he's given it up now. So that's a credibility to people who live in that ward and them supporting him for all these years. So it's going to be Marty Quinn now. He's the alderman, protege of Mike Madigan. He'll be basically the same person in that seat. Nothing is really going to change in the 13th Ward organization, and nothing's going to change at 65th and Pulaski over the Lithuanian Museum.
Yeah. All right. It's not a SFR if Chris isn't talking about some sort of corruption or ethical violation. The Chicago treasurer is in some hot water. What's going on?
Well, Melissa Conyears-Ervin, she's the Chicago City treasurer. Mostly a low-key position. You hear more about the Chicago City clerk than you do the treasurer, because people kind of forget that exists. But she's supposedly supposed to be running for the 7th Congressional District against Danny Davis. And just in time for petition season, we dig up some stuff from 2020 about her office. So apparently what happened was Melissa Conyears-Ervin allegedly approached BMO Harris Bank to give her husband's aldermanic office a mortgage. And 2 people in her office apparently said, hey, this isn't really that ethical now, is it, Melissa? They may or may not have gotten fired. This looks like it's going to be a pretty big issue. And if she has any second thoughts about running for Congress now, these would probably be coming in. At the very least, this is a campaign issue to use against it.
Yeah, I mean, it reads fairly salacious, and it's definitely they're all allegations at this point. But I think you're right. The timing is interesting because people have been trying to dig this up for 2 or 3 years, and now here she is threatening to challenge an incumbent, and it all hits the news. It's just, I'm sure it's just accidental timing.
But I do need to get a jab in at former Mayor Lori Lightfoot, because apparently it seems that Miss Lightfoot, she of the let the light in to city government, may have covered up some of this stuff while in office. So You gotta love that we're talking. This has been the show about hypocrisy. So let's end the show with another example of hypocrisy where Miss Good Government Lori Lightfoot might have been covering up some misconduct at the city treasurer's office.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about hypocrisy, or maybe just cognitive dissonance. But Lori Lightfoot, you've been wanting to talk about this for a while now. Lori Lightfoot is now Professor Lori Lightfoot at Harvard. And one of the classes that she is teaching, I kid you not, I'm saying this not tongue in cheek, is how to deal with the media. You know, Lori Lightfoot, the one who alienated the Chicago media and got them all to turn on her in her one term in office. She's teaching a class on how to deal with the media, which how many times do we see this in politics where candidates who lose or do things poorly end up teaching a class on that thing? Or candidates who lose by big margins start up companies and start doing political consulting for a bunch of candidates. Or maybe candidates who do really, really poorly in their races start up data and tech companies and work with all the Republican organizations throughout the state. I'm hinting at who I'm talking about. Like, how many times do we see here that these losing candidates or these candidates who do things poorly want to tell all the rest of us how to do stuff?
Listen, I'm just hoping we get some candidates in like the next 10 to 20 years who, when they get texts from members of the media, tell them to go F themselves. Because that's the Lori Lightfoot school of dealing with the press.
I mean, it's just the idea here of, like, if you told me Lori Lightfoot is teaching a class on how to deal with the media, that's like, I don't know. Give me something that's that crazy. Let's end with some fun. Like, what if you heard something that crazy? What would it be? Let's try to come up with something fun. We didn't prep for this, so hopefully someone can come up with something at the top of their head. DeRay's usually our king of the one-liners.
Bruce Rauner teaching a class on labor relations.
Okay, good. That's a good start. What else we got?
Good.
JB Pritzker teaching a fitness class.
Okay, all right.
Maybe Anthony Weiner teaching people how to use Twitter.
That's a good one. That's a good one. What else?
Come on, DeRay.
Come on, DeRay, this is your time to shine.
The problem is
okay,
the pressure is on the poor guy.
It's got to be like off the cuff, you know.
You can't
All right,
force
John,
it.
you say something.
I mean, it'd be like Michael Madigan telling you how to get out of jail for free. We'll see about that.
That was
That was
terrible,
weak.
DeRay. What the
All right,
hell was
whatever.
that?
That was weak.
I'm
It's
setting
like
the bar low for
Matt DeRay teaching a class on how to get haircuts.
Oh, shit.
That's good. That's funny. Or you teaching a class on how to get a tan.
Yeah, see? Well done. That's absolutely
There we
accurate.
go.
That'd be the worst class ever. It's like John teaching a class on how to travel on the cheap.
Affordability, yeah. Budgeting.
Yeah, affordability, how to live frugally. Anybody else got anything? Come on. Let's leave our
White Sox
viewers and
teaching a
watch it with
class on
something funny.
winning.
White Sox, or just let's make it better. Jerry Reinsdorf teaching a class on how to run a winning franchise. We got anything else? Come on, this is gold, guys. This is fun.
Mike Madigan teaching a class on ethics.
Right?
Ooh, what? Come
I
on.
mean, that was better. That one was much
That was better than
DeRay's.
DeRay's, but like that was still pretty. Like, come on. Guys.
Trump teaching a class on chivalry. Do that.
There you go. There you
Trump
go. That's a
teaching a
good one.
class on how to store documents.
John teaching a class on buying Bears tickets.
We could have
Joe Biden.
Still waiting on him.
Joe Biden teaching a class on dementia awareness.
no Joe Biden teaching a class on how to ride a bike. This is good.
Or how
All right.
to engage with your friends' children. Don't sniff them. That's weird.
Yeah, you know what? That doesn't get enough play. Like, now that he's president, we seem to have moved beyond all those photos of just how creepy Joe Biden is.
Weird
All
guy.
right. All right, we're gonna save the rest of these topics. Anybody have any final? Okay, I was just echoing because Oliver doesn't have herself on mute. Thanks, Oliver. All right. Anybody have any closing thoughts? We are over our time, and I know we got to get going here. Anybody have closing thoughts here before we shut down?
Colin,
Go
you
Pack,
didn't-
go. Go Pack,
would
go.
say-
Big game Sunday. Go Pack, go.
Colin, do you want to talk about Nikki Haley leading Biden by 6 points in the poll release? Like, I feel
we're over time. I know. Okay, let's cover it for a second. Because we do have to talk about, if we're going to talk about national politics, we should talk about that not only is Nikki Haley starting to make some gains, as is your boy Vivek, disarray, I'll admit. But it looks like a whole bunch of big donors are starting to ditch DeSantis, including Bruce Rauner, who's moved over to Haley. So it's got a bit of an Illinois tie there. So yeah, I mean, I do want to say it's kind of nice that Nikki Haley's getting a little bit of a look here in this race. We'll see.
Would you take Bruce Rauner's money or would you turn it down? I guess you already said that earlier. We're taking everybody's money.
We're
taking everybody's money.
Taking Rauner's money.
Why wouldn't you take the money?
Well,
I know where that
I
money
guess
is
nationally it doesn't matter as much, but if I was running for like state rep or something, that's the last dollar I'd want.
Okay, listen, this is me saying, that's why I said I'd be a horrible candidate, because I would just take the money. Yes, but you see these press releases all the time. So-and-so took money from so-and-so, that person's so bad. It maybe gets a mention in an article, and then nobody cares. Like, that stuff moves on. You want to give me $100K so I can get my state rep campaign up on TV? Then fine, I'll let the other side run a press release, and then I'll go run a couple of weeks of cable TV and do some mailings. Like, I'll take that money.
Rauner prefers to spend his money giving it to Planned
I
Parenthood.
guess.
Well, and losing campaigns, but whatever. All right, let's close on this, which is if Chris was going to say go Pack go. I mean, we are recording this a couple days before the Bears season opener. The NFL season starts tonight on Thursday. You're probably watching this on Friday, so you'll already know what happened last night in the football game. But this Sunday, Bears Packers. Let's get predictions from the people who actually know football. So anybody who isn't Chris, what's going to go on here with Bears Packers on Sunday?
Chris Jacoviak, 2022 Core Strategies Office Fantasy Football Champion. Just want to point that out.
All right. So Chris, what's your prediction? Who's going to win the game and what's the score?
I think it's either going to be a very, very close game. I mean, I think both quarter. I mean, if Justin Fields is as good as
Bears, political answer: who's going to win the game and what's going to be the score? Come on.
Oh, who's going to? The Packers are going to win. It's going to be 35-2.
Okay, so we're gonna get our horrible defense is gonna somehow get a safety.
Oh no, it's gonna be a
it's gonna be close, and then you said 35-2.
Yeah,
we
right.
wanted a political answer. I got to give the propaganda to all by Packers believers out there.
Who else? John, what do you think?
Look, as our office's resident sports gambler, as a Bears fan, it pains me to say this, but I'd probably take Green Bay +1, and I'm definitely taking the over. Look, I'm about making money. Sorry, I speak.
The pink slip is on its way, John. Anybody else?
Do you want us to be right, or do you want us to give you hope? What was the goal here?
I mean, Michael, do you? Isn't the NFL evil? Are you allowed to talk about the NFL?
We just kind of leapfrog the Bears and go either to the Packers or we go all the way over to Kansas
yeah, but
City,
like, is it for like
team.
For conservatives? Isn't the NFL evil and we're not supposed to talk about it? So like, are you going to get in trouble for talking about the NFL?
I don't know. I can say that the Bears are going to lose because they're from Chicago and we hate Chicago.
Okay. All right. We got 3 for the Packers. Oliver, as a Lions fan, who do you hate more?
Packers, I hate them, and it pains me to say this, but I think Packers by like a field goal, maybe, because you guys can't make field goals at home. No.
Oh my God, Beret. I know you don't care about sports ball, but what do you got?
I know nothing about football, and that's exactly why I'm going to win the Core Strategies Fantasy Football Draft. That's all that matters. That's the real winning that we're going to do. But I'm going to win. I'm going to win. We're all going to win. It's going to be great.
Okay, Trump. Who's winning Packers Bears on Sunday?
Oh, I have no clue. I don't care. I don't even know the difference.
Pick
except
one.
the colors.
Make a pick.
All right, the Packers.
All right, we got all 5 of you. So here's what I'll say. Here's my prediction.
Look at Chris. He's having the best day.
We don't even need real size Ditka to win this race. So Mini Ditka is going to come, and Mini Ditka is going to take on the Packers, and we're going to win 70-3. So you heard it here first. Mini Ditka versus the Packers. Mini Ditka wins. All right, thank you to my political team.
Packers come back.
Thank you to the political team, except for Chris, John, Matt, Michael, and Abby, who all picked the Packers. So thank you to none of you When you guys all see me doing the show by myself next week, you'll know why. Thank you to Lane Davis, our producer, who I know is smart enough to pick the Bears. So him and I are going to stand strong on this. Appreciate all you guys watching. Please like, please subscribe. We are doing this. We are dedicated. I woke up at 6 a.m. this morning to get on my flight, to get all the way down here to Corpus Christi, 9 hours of travel because I got training down here in Texas. That's why, by the way, I'm here and I don't have a cigar. But we are dedicated to making this happen. I know our team has a bunch of events to go to tonight, and we make the time to keep you informed. So please like, subscribe, share this, get it out to other people. We love the fact that we hear from you all every week. So please help us spread the word, and we will catch you next week after the Bears win.